This is lesson 9-4, video number 2, and I am at the top of page 617 looking at example 2. This problem tells us that we are going to be finding perimeter and area in the coordinate plane. So our problem, I'm not going to be able to follow it along with my phone easily, so you can read it in your book. Draw and classify the polygon with vertices A, B, C, and D. Find the perimeter of it and the area of it. So we also remember we're not just drawing it and we're not just finding the area and the perimeter, but we also must classify it as what shape it is. So we're pulling together a lot of geometry that we've learned in the last few lessons, actually the last few chapters. And I'm sorry, we have a group me going for a volleyball tournament, so that's why things keep flashing in the video. I should have put do not disturb and I didn't think to ahead of time, so I apologize. It may happen again. All right, so the first thing we need to do is plot these points on graph paper, which of course they've already done. And y'all, one thing that I do that I think helps is whenever something is plotted, I go ahead and label that coordinate. I label the point. And that way I don't have to keep looking at the problem to figure that out, which could create some serious confusion when working your way through a long mathematical problem. So I'm encouraging you to do that, but let's plot the points and then connect them to draw the shape. And then we need to start figuring out what the relationships of the lines in this shape are so that we can classify it. So the first thing we need to do is, this appears to be a rectangle. Let's check the slopes and see if it actually is. So a rectangle is a parallelogram, which means it would have two sets of parallel sides. So we would need to check the slope for BC and AD to see if they were the same, and AB and DC to see if they were the same. Remember, slope formula. Think about that before I say it. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to get slope. So for the slope of AB, I'm going to try to turn this camera so you can see both. For the slope of AB, we're going to say y2, and they're using this as their second point. So y2 minus y1, that's -4. Wait, no, I'm sorry. This is their second point. So let's go from B to A. So we're going to say 4 minus 1. And then for x2 minus x1, 2 minus -4, 2 plus 4. So 4 minus 1 and 2 plus 4 is going to give us 3/6 or 1/2. Then we are going to proceed to do the same thing with BC, which is right here. So we did AB first, then BC, then CD, then DA. Now we need to compare them. We're comparing to see if BC and AD are in fact parallel. Remember, in order for lines to be parallel, they must have the same slope. Super important. So we see that AB and CD have the same slope. AB and CD are in fact parallel, and we see that BC and DA do have the same slope. Let's see, what did I say? So first I'm sorry, I think I repeated the same thing that time. BC and DA. BC and DA also have the same slope. So this is in fact a parallelogram at the very least. Now let's look and see what else we can glean from these slopes. Do you notice that this is the opposite reciprocal of this? Because -2 is really a -2 over 1. And we'll do that down here as well. So we have this BC being perpendicular to CD because opposite slopes are perpendicular. You need to try to hang on to these things that we've put into our minds so that you can reapply them as we go. We also see that CD and DA are perpendicular. CD and DA. So we actually now know that we have a rectangle. So we're done classifying our polygon. We have a rectangle because we have two sets of parallel sides and we have right angles. All right, so let's move on to the next step. We were asked to find the perimeter and the area. In order to do that, we're going to need to learn about the length of these sides, which we cannot figure out just by looking at this graph because it's not going horizontally and it's not going vertically. So when we're cutting across the angles of these little squares, we've got to use our distance formula. So we're going to use the distance formula to find one base and one height. We can either choose AB or CD for our base and AD or BC for our height. Conversely, we could have used AD as our base and DC as our height. Since it's a rectangle, it does not matter which is the base and which is the height. So they've chosen to do CD. So we're going to use the distance formula, which would be x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And it's the square root of all of that. So we're going to plug in using CD. We're going to use, let's see, this is going to be our second point, and this is going to be our first point. So we're going to say negative 2 minus 4 squared plus negative 3 minus 0 squared, and take the square root of that. And then we're going to simplify our radical. It'll be 3 radical 5, and that is our base, or our length. What did I say it is? 3 radical 5. Now we need to do the exact same thing with either BC or AD. So they've done it with BC. They have used the distance formula to find the length of BC, and that comes out to be 2 radical 5. Now area on this is going to be simple because we just say base times height. So we're going to say 3 radical 5 times 2 radical 5, and that would be 3 times 2 is 6. Square root of 5 times square root of 5 is just 5, and 6 times 5 is 30. So our area for this graphed polygon is 30 units squared. Lastly, let's look at the perimeter. The perimeter, if you'll remember, is going to be 2 of the lengths and 2 of the widths, or 2 of the bases and 2 of the heights. So here's 1 base, 2 bases, 1 height, 2 heights. So an easy way to say that is perimeter equals 2 times the base plus 2 times the height. So we're going to have 2 times our base of 3.5, as you see right there, plus 2 times our height of 2 radical 5. I think I said 3.5. I meant 3 radical 5, plus 2 times 2 radical 5. And our answer, these are like terms. So here we simply need to say 2 times 3 is 6. Here we need to say 2 times 2 is 4, so we have 6 radical 5 plus 4 radical 5 equals 10 radical 5 units, and that's our perimeter. Feel free to come back to this video to review that a little bit more as you get ready to do homework problems. And also there's this side note in your book that reminds you about distance formula and slope, and pages that you can find help for that. All right, that's the end of that video, and be waiting for number 3.